Welcome to Creature Guy Live Daily News. For those of you that don't know, my name is Ethan. Today we're going over a new discovery, what's going on with supposedly a Diplodocus, as well as a new species of Archosaur from the Triassic period, and to see what's going on with wolves over in California, and as well new births of otters. And we're streaming on both Rumble and YouTube. So, from Sci News, Jurassic long necked dinosaur suffered from Aspergillosis like respiratory infection.
As
Aspergillosis.
Aspergillosis.
Aspergillosis. The, the pulmonary disease infecting this Diplodocus dinosaur, nicknamed Dolly, would not have been externally evident, but the probable pneumonia like outward symptoms would have included coughing, labored breathing, nasal discharge, fever, and weight loss, among others. It is the first known case of an avian style pulmonary infectious disease in a non avian dinosaur. Interesting. I thought we possibly already had evidence of certain non-avian dinosaurs. So basically, everything outside of the Paravis lineage of the Archosauromorph lineage of dinosaurs, or the dinosaur lineage of Archosaurs, with certain respiratory issues. So I must be confusing it with certain other infections. So it's talking about Dolly. I was mistaking it for Dippy. Let's bring up Dippy real quick. This is another individual. So Dippy the Diplodocus, most renowned species or individual, Diplodocus individual, which also inhabited the Jurassic period about 150 million years ago. So Dippy, and then oh, okay. So, Dippy the Diplodocus was found over on the Sheep River of Wyoming in 1899, and it was named, well, the species name is Diplodocus carnegie, which is named after Andrew Carnegie, which described, well, he was the director of, I believe, the Pittsburgh Museum of Natural History over in Pennsylvania, but it's not hitting me as to why specifically they named the species after him. But, Diplodocus in general was discovered by Samuel Winston back in 1877 over in the Morrison Formation of Colorado, I believe also adjacent to Denver. So possibly also, close to the town of Morrison itself. This animal inhabited, a wide range of different states over in North America: Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, around 150 million years ago. It was one of the longest species of sauropods to exist at this point, reaching a length of about 90 feet or pushing 30 meters. And it was very lightly built for its length. It was originally assumed that Diplodocus was much heavier, like possibly weighing somewhere between 30 to 40 tons. And in reality, considering later analysis to the bone showed, like with practically every species of sauropod, they had very hollow bones and their holes were quite porous, just filled with several holes, which would have made them much more lightweight. So, while you would have had certain sauropods that were a bit more stocky or a slightly more dense of bone structure, Diplodocus was the complete opposite. And this animal probably didn't weigh much more than 15 to 20 tons. 20 tons would be pushing it for a Diplodocus carnegie. And also its skull. We do have the skull of Diplodocus, which is very um, refreshing to see, considering, well, many species of the later Titanosauridae lineage of dinosaurs, sauropod dinosaurs, many species, especially the larger um, genre, we have not found the skulls of, especially animals like Argentinosaurus. But with Diplodocus and close relatives like Brontosaurus and Apatosaurus, we luckily do have the skulls of. Also, when it came to describing Diplodocus itself, that was of Othniel Charles Marsh. So let's see. I think this is of a Diplodocus. This is an interesting reconstruction. They didn't. The artist did not change the overall morphology of the neck once it hit the head. That's interesting. There's usually a bit of a more narrow sort of a protrusion when it comes to the muscle, skin, and overall neck structure. Even the osteoderms would be placed somewhat lower than the skull when it comes to the tip of the neck. But on this instance, it's very aligned with the animal, almost like with certain reconstructions of Brontosaurus to an extent. Or another animal, but knock off the osteoderms, would be Camarasaurus, which tends to have many reconstructions where the neck is pretty much aligned with the head, though Camarasaurus was much shorter in length compared to Diplodocus. It is also not a member of the Diplodocid lineage of sauropods. It is a Camarasauromorph, or member of Camarasauridae. It did coexist with Diplodocus, however, over in Colorado 150 million years ago. It was likely feeding on different species of conifers along with Diplodocus. Let's see. Well, let's head back to the article. So we're dealing with an animal, Dolly. I've heard of Dolly, but I just haven't put in as much research into this individual. So this is quite new. I do like the picture in this instance. It's a very Jurassic wetland atmosphere. It could be along the coast. Dolly is an immature dinosaur that lived approximately 150 million years ago.
That just sounded like you said Dolly's an amateur.
Yeah, I don't think I said that. It represents an undescribed species of Diplodocus. So it is a Diplodocus. It is this specific genus. We just don't know what specific species, considering there are few other species of Diplodocus besides Carnagi, a genus of large, long-necked herbivorous sauropod dinosaurs. Its fossilized remains were originally collected in 1990 from the Morrison Formation of southwest Montana, the United States. Okay, so this is a much more northern specimen or individual of Diplodocus. This is not a Colorado specimen or a Wyoming specimen. They consist of a complete skull with the first seven associated and articulated cervical vertebrae, bones from the neck. In the new study, Dr. Kerry Woodruff of the Great Plains Dinosaur Museum and his colleagues examined three of the cervical vertebrae and identified never before seen abnormal bony protrusions that had an unusual shape and texture. The protrusions were located in an area of each bone where they would have had been penetrated by air filled sacs. So, air sacs are a specific type of respiratory mechanism that birds contain today, and as well the different species of theropod dinosaurs and the sauropods. I think it still is a bit of a mystery as to whether or not the ornithischians, so the lineage of dinosaurs that would have consisted of the stegosaurs, the ceratopsians, the ankylosaurs, the ornithopods, whether or not they would have had them. I think it is certainly possible. The So these air sacs would have ultimately connected to Dolly's lungs and formed part of the dinosaur's complex respiratory system, basically allowing them to gain an efficient amount of oxygen without having to work very hard, which enables birds to fly at high altitudes without suffocating. CT imaging of the irregular protrusions revealed that they were made of abnormal bone that most likely formed in response to an infection. This is a decent amount of the cervical vertebrae that's been discovered, along with the skull. Wow. Whoa. That is a massive issue. The pathologic pneumatic tissue. So, given the likely
Was that
symptoms,
its airway?
it very well might be.
Huh.
Given the likely symptoms that, whoa, what just happened? Oh. This animal suffered from holding these infected bones in your hands. You can't help but feel sorry for Dolly. We've all experienced these same symptoms: coughing, trouble breathing, a fever, etc. And here's a 150-million-year-old dinosaur that's likely felt as miserable as we all do when we're sick. Based on the location of abnormal bony protrusions, the paleontologist suggests that they formed in response to a respiratory infection, which ultimately spread into these neck vertebrae via the air sacs and caused the irregular bone growths. They speculate that this respiratory infection could have been caused by a fungal infection similar to Aspergillosis, a common respiratory illness that affects birds and reptiles today and can lead to bone infections. This fossil infection in Dolly not only helps us trace the evolutionary history of respiratory related diseases back in time, but gives us a better understanding of what kinds of diseases dinosaurs were susceptible to. The researchers suggest that if Dolly had been infected with an aspergillosis like respiratory infection, it likely experienced flu or pneumonia like symptoms such as weight loss, coughing, fever, or and breathing difficulties. Let's bring up somebody else that had a bit of an issue. Um, Big Owl. So this is an Allosaurus that died due to several bone, um, or at least damages on several bones, as well as a toe infection. It had a very hard life for an Allosaurus. I mean, this animal had to risk getting hit by sauropods, stegosaurs, as well as getting into fights with other allosaurs or possibly even torvosaurs in the region. Ceratosaurs could even be an issue. Interesting. They have a mosasaur right next to him. They did not live in the same period. However, this was also shown in the documentary, The Ballad of Big Al, which is a side documentary to the 1999 series Walking with Dinosaurs. But this is him. Is there a picture where it shows his foot with the toe infection? Maybe also let's but definitely as you can see with the upper skull, at least comparing it to other theropod dinosaurs, setting aside the issues this individual had, Allosaurus had very peripheral vision. So, really only being able to see towards the sides of himself, not very much toward the front. So, it would be a bit nervous when another Allosaurus individual would be approaching it from the front. Unlike later species of theropod dinosaurs, certain individuals would have binocular vision. It wasn't too common in the theropod lineage. Okay, so he's beautiful and complete left foot. That's funny. Okay, so let's see what's going on. Yeah, it's a pretty good model. I love these animatronic or these not puppets, but just the overall mold for the skull. I think that looks really good. Okay, let's see what's going on. Oh yeah, I guess so. Mike Berglund. Oh, he made it. Yeah, that's really good. See, yeah. Despite this animal not having a very strong bite force, it still had like some of the sharpest teeth compared to many species of theropod dinosaur, especially in the Jurassic. Not quite as sharp as Ceratosaurus, but definitely on the top few. That's interesting. It didn't show the toe in this. Let's see. Ben Pabst holding an endocast of Big Al's 2 brain. Oh yeah, Allosaurus also had an extremely large brain compared to its body size for many species of theropod dinosaurs, even for the Jurassic. Possibly one of the smartest species of dinosaurs to evolve at that point. Probably in core with certain species of dromaeosaurs as well as tyrannosaurs. Very large brain. Decent sense of smell too, so a large olfactory nerve. That's odd. I think there are certain issues though. No, Big Al's too unique assortment of possible stomach contents. So these are of certain other dinosaur remains or dinosaurs that he was feeding on that were preserved in his rib cage. Is that a stone? I can't tell. Or maybe it's an osteoderm of some sort. That's interesting. I had not known that we had found stomach contents from Big Al.
Maybe he died from that bone getting caught.
Yeah, it could be an issue, but,
It looks like he
um,
swallowed a whole bone.
yeah, it's true. Well, I mean,
How big is it
he
though?
did. Yeah, that's the question, and dinosaurs had the ability, like modern day crocodiles, alligators, to, efficiently digest bone. They had very strong stomach acids. So that is quite, odd. Yeah, Bighorn County, Wyoming, 1996. He wasn't, full grown, it seems, or he was either I don't believe he was necessarily of a, just smaller Allosaur species in general. I think he is Fragilis, which is not the largest species, But you had 26 feet, 8 meters, and 7.5 feet taller at the hip. We're about 2.3 meters, 1.5 tons. So definitely not the heaviest individual. Okay, well, let's head back to um, Dolly, the Diplodocus. Al's a great individual. So let's see. Based on the location of abnormal bony protrusions, the paleontologist suggests that they form in response to a respiratory infection, which ultimately spread into these neck vertebrae via the air sacs and caused irregular bone growths. They speculate that this respiratory infection could have been caused by a fungal infection similar to Aspergillosis, a common respiratory illness that affects birds and reptiles today and can lead to bone infections. This fossil infection in Dolly not only helps us trace the evolutionary history of respiratory related diseases back in time, but gives us a better understanding of what kinds of diseases dinosaurs were susceptible to. The researchers suggest that if Dolly had been infected with an aspergillosis like respiratory infection, it likely experienced flu or pneumonia like symptoms such as weight loss, coughing, fever, and breathing difficulties. Yeah, it's just it's almost neat that this was occurring, especially back then in the Jurassic, but still quite unfortunate for the animal, just given what has been preserved within the cervical vertebrae or within the neck. As aspergillosis can be fatal in birds if untreated, a potentially similar infection in Dolly could have ultimately caused the death of the animal. Yeah, these parasites have existed for a long time. Um, anyway, this was very interesting and captivating to see. Let's head forward in time to the Cenozoic era. So, from discovermagazine.com, giant otter gives birth to triplets at Chester Zoo, a rare success for the endangered species. Yeah, there are not many giant otters within South America, despite how abundant they tend to appear in documentaries that take place in the Pantanal ecosystem of Brazil. Learn how the birth of three giant otter pups at Chester Zoo could support conservation efforts for one of the world's most endangered freshwater predators with fewer than 500 in the wild. Okay, why isn't it? So inside a zoo, well, it's just being a bit repetitive. Three pups, two males and one female, were born on February 9th, 2026. First time parents, Bonita and Manu, marking the first giant otter birth at the zoo in 7 years. The arrival is part of a conservation breeding program aimed at supporting a species that is becoming increasingly rare across South America. Okay, well, that's good to hear. So they're not just likely going to be stuck at the zoo, they're going to be headed down to South America. The arrival of these three giant otter pups is a hugely special moment, said Rachel Boatwright, assistant team manager of carnivores at the zoo, in the press release. They'll probably send them to the Patinal ecosystem. So, for their first weeks, the pups remained inside the halt where Bonita fed them as they
Wait, what
grew.
was that?
Oh, yeah, well, they look pretty healthy. Hmm. I don't think they're either too recently born or they're just very quick on their feet, which is to be expected. By the time keepers were able to examine them at 2 months old, the pups had already more than tripled in size, a reflection of how quickly they grow during this early stage. Okay, so they have been around for some point. During that first check, each pup was weighed and assessed, with vets examining their heart, teeth, and overall condition. All three were found to be healthy, and the exam confirmed their genders. At 8 weeks old, the pups will now start to venture outside alongside parents, Bonita and Manu, who will start introducing them to the water and all the essential skills they'll need as they grow. So I guess, is there something else? No, I think it's just talking about their endangered status. Oh, well, let's see. There's something else going on. So, Chester Zoo is part of a wider network of conservation programs contributing to more than 140 international breeding efforts aimed at protecting species at risk of extinction. Oh, well, it's talking about a wide variety of other species, which is interesting to see. I was just wondering about the giant otters themselves. It'll still help because 5,000 is a very low population. Okay, well, this is really good to see with the otter births. Let's head back in time to possibly the Mesozoic or the time of the dinosaurs. From Sci News, new Triassic Archosaur species identified in Tanzania. So over in East Africa, not too surprising, but still really good to hear it considering the Triassic period over in East and Southern Africa. We have a wide variety of different species of early dinosaurs, as well as different species of archosauromorphs and even proto-mammals and diapsids that come from different regions, especially even from the Permian period as well. So the Pseudosuchian archosaur, Membawakale rahuhu. That is probably what Swahili. Anyway, is among the larger headed archosaurs from middle to late Triassic. Okay, so it definitely looks like it looks like a poposaur. It could be a member of the Ornithosuchidae, or it's a member of the lineage in which, like the Rausukians, like what Postosuchus belongs to.
Is it blurry or is it just me?
Slightly, it is. Um, let's see. Let's actually, well, shortly. Let's finish this up real quick. So, Mambawakale Rahuhu, I miss Latin now, lived in what is now Tanzania during the Middle Triassic period, some 240 million years ago. It would have been a large and terrifying predator which roamed across Tanzania some 240 million years ago, said University of Birmingham's Professor Richard Butler. At around 5 meters or 16.4 feet long, it's one of the largest predators that we know of from this period. There were much larger species of Rausukians that existed back in the Triassic period, if this is a Rausukian. Poposaurs, not necessarily. They did become larger than this. So this is probably like a medium-sized species. So the fossilized remains of Mambawakale rahuhu. Yeah, stick in Greek. A partial skull, lower jaw, several vertebrae, and a hand were collected from the Manda beds, also known as the Manda Formation, a geological formation in southern Tanzania in 1963. From these, Professor Butler and his colleagues were able to identify several distinctive features that set it apart from other archosaurs found in the Manda beds. These included a large skull, more than 75 centimeters or 29.5 inches in length, and a particularly large nostril, as well as a notably narrow lower jaw and strong variation in the sizes of the teeth at the front of the upper jaws. Okay, so let's bring up Ornithosuchus, which is another species of Archosauromorph. So Ornithol. No L. Suchus.
At least that one's spelled similarly to how it sounds.
Um Yeah, it kind of rhymes. Well, what is interesting is that it has ornitho inside of its name, which is a bit more of a common sort of a genus or species name that can be used for different lineages of dinosaurs, especially, and it can depend on whether you're talking about the Saurischian lineage of dinosaurs or the Ornithischian lineage of dinosaurs. So the ornithopods or even the ornithomimids. But this is not a dinosaur, though it is a close relative to the overall group. So Ornithosuchus is a member of the Ornithosuchidae lineage of Archosauromorphs back in Pangaea during the Triassic period. So this was somewhere around 230, somewhere between 230 to 240 million years ago, coexisting with some of the earliest species of dinosaurs. So this was back when many of the dinosaurs were not much more than 3 feet and 3.3 feet in length, or about a meter.
This one thinks he's a dog.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. This must be of a smaller Ornithosuchus individual. They're not necessarily this, I guess, juvenile or hatchling like. So, anyway, besides this, they were somewhat closely related to later species of crocodilomorphs, considering they do belong to Pseudosuchiae. Now, Ornithosuchus is an interesting archosaur. This animal was, it seemed, in some ways bipedal, but it possibly also had the ability to walk on all fours as well. Um,
He looks happy.
yeah, yeah, he does. This wasn't necessarily a small species of Ornithosuchid. It could still reach a length of close to the size of the um, rough fufu species that we're talking about. Um, Probably reaching a length of somewhere around 16 feet or pushing 5 meters, and probably weighed somewhere around 4 to 500 pounds, or a little over 200 kilograms, and was likely feeding on other species of crocodilomorphs as well as different species of small dinosaurs. Might have even had preyed on some of the earliest species of pterosaurs, yet they would really only provide maybe a snack to the animal. So maybe certain early species like Patinosaurus, but Patinosaurus really hadn't evolved yet. So likely wasn't the case. Also, certain species of proto mammals as well. They were quite large during this period, like the large tusked dicynodonts. Mammals at this point, they would remain small throughout the Mesozoic, but you still didn't really have at this point any of the 30-pound behemoths of the time, or pushing a little over 12 kilograms. Okay, let's head back to um, Triassic Tanzania with the other possibly. I mean, I think it could very well be a Rausukian. Is this the skull? Whoa! Yep, that's the skull. Is that the bomb jaw and the upper jaw? That is very nice. Yeah, I think just trying to figure out whether or not I'm looking at the same skull. Hmm. Well, it's showing A and B. I think it's the upper and the bottom jaw.
Yeah, they're different. Look right here on both.
Well, I was looking at the
Right
okay.
here.
Also, well, also
It's
if you
different.
also looking at the front of the snout, this one's much more blunt. Probably the bottom jaw, and then the upper jaw is that very pointy tip.
No, one's the top and
Unless,
one's the bottom.
yeah, that's actually what I was wondering.
Well,
Still, though, I don't know. That's a
because this is
very.
identical right here,
Oh yeah, it
the
is.
top and the bottom.
Gosh, but it looks so thin here, though, on the top one. I don't know. I mean, it very well could be. Well, let's keep looking.
Yeah, that's the interior.
Yeah,
It
it's
has
true.
teeth.
Okay.
No
Yeah,
teeth.
there's no teeth there. I was thinking maybe the bottom jaw was just bare of teeth.
How can you be so good at this and miss that?
So Membawakali rahuhu is characterized by several cranial autapomorphies that allowed it to be distinguished with confidence from all other mandibeds archosaurs, with the possible exception of Staganosuchus nyasychus, for which comparisons are highly constrained due to very limited overlapping material. Phylogenetic analysis suggests that Membawakali rahuhu is an early diverging pseudosuchian. That's not very
Every
specific,
time you
but okay.
say that, though, I wanna spit coffee.
Yeah, very incoherent. But more precise resolution is hampered by missing data. The species is also one of the largest known pseudosuchians recovered to date from the Middle Triassic. Okay, that is somewhat true. If you venture further or later into the Triassic, by 210 million years ago, there were behemoths over in different parts of South America, even North America to an extent. I think Africa as well. When it came to different species of the early pseudosuchians, especially the Rausuchians. But Middle Triassic, yeah, 16 to 20 feet in length was a large species. So this is good to see. I'm just gonna have to work on my, I think, analyze some more pseudosuchian skulls, especially from the Triassic. So let's head back to the Cenozoic era. Final article from sfgate.com. History being made. Gray wolf enters Sequoia National Park for the first time in over a century. Woohoo! From
It's actually a fox, but it's making itself out to be a gray wolf to be left alone.
yeah, that would be. I mean, I love foxes, but that would be sad. Um, so Sequoia National Park is just well, a bit southeast of Fresno. So it's actually situated in central eastern California in the Sierra Nevada, just south of the Sequoia and Yosemite National Parks, and then the Sequoia National Forest. Wow, these are two very healthy individuals. Oh, wait a second. Is this somewhere else?
They just look like someone's dogs.
Yeah, members of the Diamondback in Plumas County, California. So a lone gray wolf has traveled hundreds of miles across California and into Sequoia National Park.
I think it's wrong. I think they're just looking for their sleighs.
Yeah, it's true. Marking the first time a wolf has been in the area for over 100 years. The 3-year-old female wolf, known as BEY03F, made headlines in February when she became the first wolf to cross into Los Angeles County since gray wolves re entered California in 2011. She was born into the Payamseo Pack in Plumas County and has since dispersed hundreds of miles across California, likely in search of a mate, according to reporting by the Los Angeles Times. Since then, she's been closely tracked using a location mapping system created by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Her location was tagged inside Sequoia National Park this week and remains there as of Tuesday. This wolf represents a massive ecological milestone since wolves were completely eradicated from California by 1924, and it's been a century since a wolf has been detected in this area. CDFW spokesperson Court Klopping told CF Gates via email. To the return of gray
Whoa.
wolves.
Was that person's name Court Klopping?
I think so. Cloping, maybe.
It is-
The return of gray wolves to California has not been without conflict, especially among ranchers who say that wolf related cattle deaths have rapidly increased in recent years. Yeah, especially what's going on over in Northern California, where you have a certain pack, I believe, taking out cattle. Now, I do need to look into the specific herbivore dynamics within the region because mule deer, definitely elk, um, certain bighorn sheep populations, and let's see who else not hitting me. Possibly want to stick beaver into there have been somewhat low in recent years, so that could be what's causing it. Because I would usually, if the prey is abundant, they don't tend to go after cattle. I mean, it can still occur, but not to the extent of what's going on in Northern California at this moment, or at least a couple months back. So the return of gray wolves to California has not been without conflict, especially among ranchers who say that wolf-related cattle deaths have been rapidly increasing in recent years. In October, CDFW officials killed 4 Bayam Sao wolves after the animals had reportedly begun relying on cattle as a primary food source. I didn't know about that. So, partially due to threats from poachers, the accuracy of California Department of Fish and Wildlife's public-facing wolf tracking map is limited. Um, huh. I guess I forget that even in California, wolves can have issues from just certain people actively hunting them. So wolves' movements on the
Well,
map.
they can't read the no hunting signs. They're in English.
Oh, all right. Wolves' movements on the map are internationally shown as approximate and generalized locations rather than real time coordinates, he said, and appear as large blocks of land instead of exact pinpoints. So question is, which pack did these wolves come from? Though they might not be collared, so we really don't know. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife released the map to the public in order to mitigate conflict between wolves and livestock. Cloping added, as knowing when a wolf is nearby can help ranchers utilize non-lethal deterrent methods before conflicts arise. It's the if you're talking about if you're also including the ranchers they're having issues with those wolves in Northern California. I think that's a bit delayed. Additionally, wolf location data was made public to build community trust, reduce panic, and prove that while gray wolves are expanding, conflicts remain relatively rare. Uh huh. Sure. So it is illegal to kill or harm gray wolves anywhere in California, as the animals are protected under federal and state endangered species acts. I keep
So wait, just so I understand this. So people aren't following the laws?
um is are you trying to be sarcastic with the poaching?
Yes.
Yeah. It's really confusing with the Endangered Species Act and what animal is or all of a sudden had its protections dropped.
Well, that's federally though.
Yeah.
State is a different thing.
Yeah, I get it's even confusing with the state's law at the time. While she remains within Sequoia's borders, BEY03F is also protected under laws that prohibit hunting in national parks, though the Trump administration has been quietly lifting many of these restrictions in recent weeks. It sounded like that for years.
They
So,
were saying that stuff back in like 2016 or something.
yeah, I have no idea. Wolf enthusiasts and conservationists have been using the California Department of Fish and Wildlife's map to track BEY03F's movements along her travels, with many onlookers considering her dispersal to be proof of the resiliency of California's natural landscapes and the enduring connectivity to its wild places. The Apex Protection Project, a Los Angeles County based nonprofit, noted that the wolf's trek is becoming one of the most important wildlife recovery stories in modern California history. Also, with that wolf that popped up adjacent to Los Angeles not long ago. In effect, watching this lone wolf push hundreds of miles south into the Sierra, it's like watching history being made in real time. That's really good to see. Technically, it is just walking in its former range, but no, it's still great. So, um, please remember to put a comment and tell me what you like about these specific Diplodocids or Allosaurs and wolves that we've talked about. And for Prehistoric to Present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guy Live Daily News. Remember to, we're also streaming on both Rumble and YouTube. Remember that nothing's better than all animals all the time.
That was funny.